everybody. This is the On the Right Side podcast. Welcome. We're coming out of the amazing America First warehouse on Long Island, thanks to our good friend Joe DeBox, who is our proprietor here. I'm Steve Levy. I'm your co-host of this amazing podcast that we meet every Wednesday at 2. I'm the former Suffolk County executive, former New York State Assemblyman, and the executive director of the Center for Cost-Effective Government think tank. I'm a contributor to Newsmax, and you'll see my writings in the Washington Examiner, Washington Times. Check us out at stevelevy.info. More importantly, we have my co-host, David Zier, not in the studio today, but from afar, because he's roaming all over this great nation for the Real America Voice as a correspondent with the president and so much more. David, I'm so glad you made it. Even though you're not in studio, you've got to catch us up on so many things you've been doing. How are you?
I'm great, Steve. Great to be with you. Special thanks to Joe DeBox, the America First Warehouse, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I've been pretty busy on the road for Real America's Voice in Washington, D.C. last week on Capitol Hill for CPAC's third annual International Summit on Human Trafficking. Interviewed different attorneys general from around different states. CPAC taking an active role, and I'll get into that, with state legislatures to restore the rights of trafficking victims and helping stop the flow of human trafficking. You know, in Georgia, the average age of a human trafficker, human trafficking victim, whether it's sex trafficking or labor, is 14 to 17 years old. Very sad. I've got big stats for you guys during the show and what our conversations entailed. Kristi Noem was there. Tom Homan was there. Mike Johnson. It was a really big deal, and this Congress is actually doing stuff. Also, last night on the ground, 345 Park Avenue, I did man-on-the-street interviews with people who had family and friends in the building, or eyewitness accounts from people who were there, stopped to talk with me. I've got some details on that, the shooting, and I've got the latest crime stats and the heinous type crimes going on in New York City. A little bit about the mayor's race and anything else you want to cover, Steve.
Well, I'll tell you, Dave, I'm glad you're bringing up human trafficking because there's a real irony here. There is the Unaccompanied Minors Act that was supposed to be helping with human trafficking. And because it's been so distorted by liberals throughout the country, it's actually winding up causing more human trafficking. And this is what I mean by that. It was in the Bush administration that the Unaccompanied Minors Act was first passed, and with good intentions, right? We knew of the cartels who were trafficking these young kids in the sex trade. So Bush and Congress at the time said, look, if our border agents confront a coyote and a young person in the trade, or is about to be served into the trade, we're going to separate them. And if this is an unaccompanied minor, that is a minor that is not accompanied by a parent or regular guardian, we're not going to just throw them back with the coyote to go back from whence they came. So they said, we'll separate them and segregate them, and we'll deal with this poor trafficked individual so they're not victimized twice. But what happened is, the cartels played with the loophole. So now they started throwing over all of these 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 16-year-olds, sometimes 2-year-olds, dumping them at the border and saying, hey, they're an unaccompanied minor. Okay, give them access into America. And this happened by the hundreds of thousands. So this originally well-intentioned bill got bastardized, and when they tried to change it in the Obama administration, Obama first floated the idea of closing the loophole. But the ACLU and all the crazies from the illegal immigration lobby stopped him, and he folded like a cheap tent. So we still have all this trafficking coming from the Unaccompanied Minors Act, David.
Yes, and Trump has already identified about 10,000 of them. They're working on tens of thousands of other cases of kids lost at the border. When he left office, there were only a few hundred. So it's some people say the estimate is as high as 700,000 kids at the border who've disappeared or are unaccounted for. And just remember the human trafficking situation. There are more slaves on planet Earth now than there ever were in the history of Earth.
So glad you're saying
27
that.
27.5 million people, 77% of all victims are in forced labor, 23% are in sex trafficking, 57% are men and boys, 43% are women and girls. And for sex trafficking, 78% are women, girls are 20 and girls, 78%, and 22% are men and boys. 8% of these people are children. So this is sick and twisted. And it's not the Mexican border that is responsible for most of the trafficking. And especially now that it's closed, we can keep our eye on the other avenues. Most of it is domestic. Boyfriends brought into the home, drug use, the foster care system, kids getting
Yeah.
shuffled from home to home.
But David,
This
we're
is really
facilitating
tragic.
the trafficking coming over the border, at least that part. That's as big a crime as the trafficking itself. Our own former president was encouraging this crap to continue by saying, hey, cartel members, just bring over these kids and we'll let them right in. And so
Well, at
you
least
had
for the-
parents over there paying $10,000 to the cartel, making them billionaires to encourage trafficking of these kids. How else were these people, how were
Well-
they paying the cartels? By having them trapped in the trafficking
Well,
system.
Well, they are, and they were even issued in some cases wristbands where they could be tracked to pay off these debts. But for the next 3 years at least, that has pretty much ended at the border.
Thanks to
least.
Trump.
Still have Chinese and Russian trafficking, but again, most of this is domestic. Law enforcement, including the FBI, all the way down, are not generally trained to look for the signs of human trafficking. Individuals who've experienced childhood abuse and neglect, children in the foster care and juvenile justice, people experiencing homelessness, people living in poverty, survivors of violence, including domestic violence, unaccompanied alien children, like you said, and individuals displaced due to political instability, and from other nations. But we know that was a ruse, right? The amnesty claim,
Right.
or asylum claims, because they never followed up, on the process. They were just here using that as an excuse, most people. But this goes on all the way to the Balkans and other places.
Well,
But I
how
just-
about checking out every nail salon and every foot massage place on Long Island, New York, and beyond, where half of this is probably occurring?
I've never been.
Well, me neither. But we could have some. Task force going in there. I know some of the local DAs do a great job with it, but it's an epidemic. It really is. And I'm so glad you mentioned that there's. I remember 12 Years a Slave. Remember the movie back in 2013? It was the Academy Award winning. And back then they were all talking about this great movie, hearkening back to the 1850s and 40s and 50s in our country. We had slavery, and the liberals make it sound like slavery was invented here in America and it was only white on black, But then you realize slavery has always existed. But more importantly, I remember thinking while these guys were accepting the Academy Awards, you guys should be saying, hey, thank God we have this movie, but slavery is here now more today than it was back then in 1840.
Right. And, Steve, it wasn't until The Sound of Freedom came out that people's eyes were really opened up to it. I just interviewed Eduardo Verastegui again, last week. A new Sound of Freedom movie coming out. And I just wanted to add CPAC, the Human Trafficking Center that they have. You think of CPAC, it's just a bunch of nerds in Washington. They are into policy, and we just walk around and shake hands of notables. No, CPAC has taken an active role in Texas, in Arkansas, in Georgia, championing the Survivors Justice Act, And what it does is, these people forced into trafficking have 3 to 5 felonies on average. They can't get loans. They can't get custody back. They can't get jobs. They can't do things in society. And, so this restores their rights to put them on the path. Kristi Noem, a lady stood up and gave moving testimony about her story in Jersey. And I interviewed Chris Smith from New Jersey, congressman, who's helped her, get her life back. And that's what the Trump administration is doing. And they're not getting credit for the humanitarian aspect of this.
Humanitarian, David, that's the thing. What kills me is the media portraying the ACLU and these not-for-profits, and I'll even say Catholic charities as being the humane ones. And no, they're encouraging inhumanity by looking the other way blindly as this trafficking is occurring and making it sound like, there's no there. I want to just segue into getting folks prepped for our next segment. You got to stay tuned, folks, because you think this was interesting. We're going to get into the 20 examples of how Hillary Clinton's campaign, the Obama administration, the FBI, and the CIA really were engaged in kind of a coup, David, against the Trump administration. And the mainstream media is blacking it out. But we're going to go over some of those specific examples that shows it is indeed true. So stay with us, folks, on the Right Side podcast.
Corrupt judges, broken families, families torn apart. This is injustice. If you've been wronged by the system, join us. Don't stand alone. Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs, president of Americans for Legal Reform. We're the oldest legal reform group in the United States. The justice system in the United States should be transparent, fair, and open to everybody and accessible. Unfortunately, many times that's not the case. At Americans for Legal Reform, we are here to help. Join the movement. Visit AmericansForLegalReform.com and help reform the system before it fails you.
My name is Elena Ruseva, aka Megalangela. Please check my art at www.megalangela.vip.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
The Queens Village Republican Club is America's oldest Republican club, founded in 1875. Situated in President Trump's hometown in Queens, New York, we are America First MAGA Republicans, empowering fellow Republicans to get involved in the game of politics at the grassroots level. We host inspiring monthly club meetings on the first Thursday of each month at 8 p.m. For more information, please go to our website at www.qvgop.org.
It's Tuesday here at the America First Warehouse. I am Joe the Box.
And I'm John the Blanket.
Freddie Rubino here from the America First Warehouse, coming to you live, the most patriotic venue in the land.
Welcome to Right for America.
I'm James Justice. We got Stephen Ruth over here. What are we doing, Steve?
Fighting!
Welcome to Tune In Tuesday of the Patriots Podcast, live streaming every Tuesday night at 7:30.
Another edition of On the Right Side here, and you can catch us weekly, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
And welcome to Liberty's Cage, where we rip the veil off America's broken justice system. Prisons that crush spirits, courts that bend to power, and a society that shuns people who have paid their price.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kevin Downey Jr. Podcast. Be free, stay free.
Okay, folks, welcome back to On the Right Side podcast. Steve Levy, your host, along with co-host David Zaire, who's remote today. David, we got to get into what's going on with the Tulsi Gabbard disclosure of this coup against Trump by Hillary, Obama, the FBI, and the CIA. And we've been writing about this in my newspaper, Long Island Life and Politics. And we editorialized on this last week, saying this is a bombshell, absolute bombshell from what's coming out. A lot of it was already out there, but now it's all been crystallized, and now you have some new information as well. But some of the readers wrote back to us and said, where are you getting your information from, blah, blah, blah. If you just get your news from the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN or MSNBC, or most of the mainstream media, you wouldn't even know about Tulsi Gabbard's report. They have blacked it out. All they want to talk about is Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. And this of such monumental importance has just been buried. So we thought at our newspaper we would follow up to those doubters as to what we were saying and actually prove to them with 20 examples of how this collusion took place. And when I talk about collusion, I don't mean collusion that was alleged to have happened between Trump and the Russians. That never existed. It's the actual collusion that existed between the FBI, the CIA, Obama's administration, and Hillary Clinton. So we're just going to go through a few, but I'm going to rattle off 3 or 4 at a time. Chime in, David, then we'll go to a few more. Let's remember, number one, that it started off with Donald Trump in the campaign of 2016 questioning the veracity of the intelligence community, especially as it pertained to the war in Iraq. It really pissed them off. So what happens? Chuck Schumer warns Trump. He says, let me tell you, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. Okay, so this is Schumer saying to Trump, you don't know the can of worms you just opened. You tick off the FBI and the CIA, they'll get you back. That's exactly what happened. Number 3, we know that FBI top-notch guy, top bigwig, Peter Strzok, and his paramour, Lisa Page, are talking back and forth in their text in 2016. They hate Trump. She says to him, he's not going to win, is he? He can't possibly win. And what does Strzok say? He says, don't worry, we have an insurance policy. Well, we now know that that insurance policy was Operation Crossfire Hurricane, where they were going to start investigating Trump. One more thing before I shoot it over to you, David. The campaign of Hillary Clinton hired the law firm of Perkins Coie to do what? To dig up dirt on Trump. They paid for the Steele dossier. They gave money to Christopher Steele. Come up with something that we can get against Trump. What does he do? He reaches out to some connections he has over in Russia, and one guy who wanted to justify his pay comes up with the insane idea that Trump was with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow, urinating on them. Totally unverified. Came out of thin air. He gives it to the Clinton campaign. The Clinton campaign then goes to Perkins Coie, the law firm. This fellow, Sussman, the attorney named Sussman, goes to the lawyers at the FBI and does not disclose that he's working for the Clinton campaign. He tells them, I've got this amazing information you have to know about national security. The Russians have something on Donald Trump. And he winds up getting indicted by the Durham Commission, claiming that he lied to the FBI. Either way, the FBI played along with it and started a spying campaign against Donald Trump based on this unverified garbage. That's just a few examples, David. Unbelievable what's happening. What do you think?
Listen, I've been saying it along with everybody else since day one, 9 years ago. that this was going on. We all knew a meeting took place in 2015. We all knew everything that is out now. I haven't seen anything that's a surprise, you know.
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one. Here's the biggie. You read Andrew McCarthy's book or Greg Jarrett from Fox. They're excellent. They laid out Bongino's book.
Yeah.
Here's something that is new, though. It's the December 8th meeting with Clapper. I think Brennan might have been in there, but Obama. And they explained to Obama that they had knowledge that this was all a dirty trick by Clinton, and that there was no attempt by the Russians to support Trump or to hack, okay? We now know that they told this to Obama. This is what's new. They told this to Obama December 8th. Then we just found out from Gabbard that on December 9th, Obama holds a meeting with the same crew and says, bury that. Do not give me my presidential briefing. Why? Because at that time period, presidential briefings would go not only to the incumbent president, but to the president-elect. That means Trump would have gotten the briefing where they had exculpatory information that the Russians were not trying to help Trump. He buries it, and on December 9th gives them the directive, Clapper and Brennan, go change the narrative and come up with new information that says Russia was meddling with this election on behalf of Trump. That's the new stuff that just hit the waves that I think is earth-shattering.
I don't know if it's earth-shattering. I mean, again, we knew all this. We knew that Biden sat in on a meeting back in 2015. He was under Obama, you know. And listen, we always knew Brennan's story and the allegations in the past about Brennan. We always knew this. We know that Lisa Page was saying if they start digging deep, we're all screwed in messages to her colleagues. You know, we knew the unverified FISA directives or warrant request, you know, were not actually verified. We know that.
And by the way, Peter Strzok said there's no there.
We know that 40,000 Americans were spied on through the FISA court. How many Americans have been railroaded, you know, since then? So, you know, listen, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. Obama's not going to be walked out in cuffs. I don't think anybody in prison.
He benefits from the Trump immunity trial, actually.
So my point is, Steve, so what happens? They go, they have a committee, people get indicted. There's a plea deal taken by Brennan, you know, as the CIA director. I mean, so, and then what?
Well, I think it's the historical record, David. That's number one. And number two, it's maybe finally reaching some of these people who are listening to just Rachel Maddow over the last 5-6 years. You have 66% of Democrats inaccurately believe that, quote, Russia tampered with vote tallies in order to get Donald Trump elected president. You still have a big chunk of America thinking that this dossier and this there was collusion between Trump and the Russians. And worst of all, they don't even know about the fact that Clinton was the one who started it all as a dirty trick against Trump.
I maintain that almost everybody who watches those channels knows that this was all bull crapola from the beginning. And I don't know how many minds you're going to change. Go back to the way, you know, Reagan is still looked at in the history books and how they've been scrubbed. And, you know, so, you know, again, I want to move forward, Steve. I want the economy back. We're hurting. I'm in construction. Every subcontractor I know is getting screwed right now. And without an interest rate drop, our economy's in jeopardy. Now, I know there was growth, and we're going to get into that. But it doesn't mean anything if interest rates are still 6.8% for a 30-year fix, because young people aren't going to buy anything. and builders aren't going forward on projects because they can't borrow the money to buy them. I'm a victim of it right now, so I want to get into that. But you know, listen, all this stuff, it's great that there's going to be, you know, whatever is going to happen from this point forward, and I'm glad Cash conveniently found burn bags in a secret room. I mean, okay, come on. We all know that people in the FBI knew these things existed, you know, and I love Cash, you know, and I think he's an honest operator, and this kind of gives him the reason and the leverage to bring it out. But, you know, I'm not so sure that this is going to go so far.
Well, again, I think you're right as far as prosecutions are concerned, though you might see some. And I think the guys who should be most worried right now are Brennan and Comey, though the statute of limitations might have run on some of that. But again, it's a matter of accountability. You're not trying to necessarily have a prosecution, but at least clarifying the record and let the public know in a documented sense, this is what actually went down.
Steve, I heard that Ratcliffe was maintaining that the statute of limitations may not come into play here, and I don't know why, but that's something to look up. And I also wanted to...
Well, they're saying it might be an extended conspiracy. With the conspiracy, you can extend the statute.
And also, Peter Strzok took down his X page, so maybe he's
interesting.
Indicted.
Hey, you brought up the economy. We're going to talk about that and the 3% growth report that just came out earlier today. So, folks, stay with us on the right side. We're getting into that and a lot more in the next segment.
Who broke the television?
Can we laugh at that? Sounds a little mean.
As of this week, public gay sex will now be mandatory.
Parties. Am I the only one that sees lips move? Cheek bones, baby.
I'm sorry, maybe I overreacted.
Corporate transfer, fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
Welcome, everybody, to the Not So Newlywed Show, where three couples are going to compete for really great prizes. Okay, Donna, we asked Mike, who complained first on your honeymoon, you or him?
What do I think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think he said...
Lisa, this ain't the SATs. Just tell us what... Donna, who complained first on the honeymoon?
I'm sure it was me, but I have no idea.
Donna is right.
No, it's always me.
What celebrity would you pick for a one-day pass?
For me?
Yeah, for you, not for him.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon! Wow! Who do you hate the most on her side? That rotten no...
There are so many choices.
Thank you all, and thank you for coming out.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see, a symbol of unity. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
All right, folks, you're back on the Right Side podcast. I'm your co-host Steve Levy, former Suffolk County Executive, New York State Assemblyman. And on the screen is remotely David Zare, our co-host from Real America Voice. David, we started hinting about discussions with the economy. Let's get into it. Earlier today, we get a report that the second quarter grew a very robust 3%. Now, to put that into context, the last quarter of Barack Obama's reign was 1.6%. Trump came in, helped beef up the economy in that 3% level. Biden came, of course, we had COVID, which changed everything, dropped us off the cliff. Then you're going to have big numbers after that because your base was so low. But the first quarter of the Trump administration was very tepid. It was level at best, might have even been a slight decline, but that was for a whole host of reasons. Now we got a 3% growth in the second quarter. Different pundits are talking about it from different perspectives. Some are saying, well, it's a result of greater confidence from the public due to the passage of Trump's bill and his tax cuts. Others are saying that it's illusory because with people knowing that the tariffs were coming, they were stocking up and they were buying a lot of material that they might have pushed off till later. Both might be right. Time will tell. But here's the biggest irony, David. You're hoping and praying that we see a rate cut, right? Is Jerome Powell going to use this 3% figure as his cushion to say, oh, can't lower the interest rates. The economy's doing too well. We might super juice it. That going to happen?
I don't think the 3% is a good number. I was hoping for 4. I've heard people talking like Larry Kudlow, hoping that it would be 3, 4, 5% coming out going forward. And again, a lot of this was tariff driven too, for maybe some personal consumption, growth and stocking up and stuff like that. But there's no doubt that the economy is going to soar, but it's not going to happen until these rates come down. People can't buy a house on a 30-year fix. It's still 6.8%. If you get a 3% down FHA loan on the average home here nationwide at about $450,000, and your taxes are $10,000 a year, your monthly overhead is going to be somewhere around $5,000 plus. And people can't do it. Rates must come down. They have to come down in the second half of this year. I think they're all doing it to foil Trump's reelection bid for the House to stay red.
Well,
right?
I know, some will say that the Fed and Powell have a legitimate reason to be cautious because there was the uncertainty with the tariffs.
Such bullcrap.
They can tend to be inflationary in some cases, but, in this last quarter, you didn't see a spike in inflation. But then again, not all of the tariffs actually kicked in. So you wouldn't know that until they all kick in. But here's the point that you were making. You want to bring the housing prices to a more affordable level. It's not only bringing the interest rate level down, but when you bring that level down, those people who were not trapped, but had a 3% mortgage and didn't want to trade up because they didn't want to go to a 6.5% mortgage, if they can go to a 4.5% mortgage, they might do it, which would put all of these frozen homes back on the market. And what happens then? You've increased your supply and demand. You have more supply of homes. The prices will be more affordable for the buyers. So that's really, really important. So let's hope this guy gets some religion. And as Trump was saying, lower them, see what happens. If inflation goes up, you can raise the rates again. But I don't think inflation will go up. I think it's worth the risk.
The rest of the country, the rest of the world are lowering rates.
Right.
In Europe, you're back down several points. And it doesn't matter if the tariffs are going to cause inflation because it's going to be temporary, right? But construction costs are up because of the tariffs.
Yep.
There are things that are being affected right now. The American public and builders. I've lost. I'm a commercial broker for 38 years. I've lost every single deal that I'm working on so far this year, except for one, because people aren't going forward. They're not comfortable. So I just got back from Palm Beach. There's a $5 million house on every corner from Jensen Beach all the way down to Fort Lauderdale. And that's great. But the other side of the road on A1A is poverty stricken with convenience stores and, lottery tickets and tattoo parlors, and there's a tale of two worlds going on here in America because the richest people are moving to Florida. By the way, my waiter the other day in my Florida restaurant that I was at told me he's moving to Alabama because Florida is too expensive. I've never heard that in my life. All I'm saying is that, they're keeping the rates higher is causing class warfare because people are bitter and they're upset and they look across the street and see the high rise with the $4 million apartment.
And remember, the rich can pay cash. The rich can pay cash, David, which your average working class person, middle class person cannot do. And
I see everyone I know under 40 years old is hurting right now. I don't know people who are doing well. It's rough.
Well, the question is, what will make things better? Part of it is getting a better, tax situation. Part of it is getting certainty with the tariff situation. Another angle is what's going on the energy front, because lower energy.
Well, that's going to be big
inflation.
next year.
Right, but you'll see the effects next year. But what we just had this past couple of weeks was Lee Zeldin, our fellow Long Islander, who's now the head of the Department of Environment. Came out reversing the Obama decree that had called carbon dioxide a toxin, which gave the bureaucrats the freedom to start imposing all kinds of regulations on our industries and our companies. And according to Zeldin, according to the Trump officials, this has been a tremendous drag on our economy. Now, I'm not saying we should do away with all environmental protections on factory smokestacks or in the emission pipes from our cars, but it really did seem to go overboard. And as the Chevron decision noted, it was the bureaucrats who were now superseding Congress when it came to imposing A to Z regulations. So Zeldin's come out and said, hey, no more you're going to consider carbon dioxide itself the threat to the world health. You have to justify it with specifics. It may unleash a great deal of prosperity in this nation.
Well, it will at some point, and Trump bringing back the coal plants to give a secure grid, opening up 624 million acres in the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean for oil exploration, cutting the permits down on federal lands from 2 to 3 years down to 14 to 28 days is going to be major. But remember, there's a limit on how much oil we can put out. We're not going to be pumping out another 1.5 million barrels a day of oil in the next 2 years. It's not going to happen. We might do 500,000 more over time, and it's good and it's positive. Then we got the small modular nuclear reactors that can go from all the way from 1 megawatt to 30 megawatt, as opposed to a big 302 terabyte or gigawatt. Nuclear.
And you're going to need that for AI, by the way. Going to need those plants.
I think AI is the next Skynet. I'm not happy about it. By the way, I was with my son at dinner last night, and he's in the sales, computer, online portal management involving AI, and he thinks 70% of the sales jobs are going to disappear because of AI.
Yeah, but
I'm very worried.
We saw that in so many other ways, but the economy shifts, and then people have to adjust, and then they're hired to monitor the AI, and there's always something new. I mean, Blockbuster is going to become Netflix, and we're just going to have to change with it. And we know the Chinese and other markets around the world are going to capture this, and we're just going to have to stay up with them or be left behind. But speaking of all that, with the EU, right? We got about a minute left in this segment, okay? There's going to be more demand for oil produced in the U.S. and gas because, thankfully, Trump reversed the craziness of the Biden administration that said, we're not going to be allowed to export natural gas to the Europeans. We'll let them buy their gas from the Russians. Absolute insanity.
And suspending the Jones Act is critical, and we will be exporting LNG to Asia and Europe. It's huge. It's huge. It's just going to take time to kick in.
Yeah, but, there's hope on the horizon with that. Let's shift gears with a minute left, and we're going to continue it in our fourth segment. You've been in New York. You've been following, getting the pulse of what's happening with the mayor's race there. But I want to dovetail into that, this mayor's race in Minneapolis with another socialist who is the leading contender to become the mayor there, this fella Omar Fatah. You think Mandani is bad? Wait till you read up on this guy Fatah. This guy is the squad on steroids. Tell us a little in 30 seconds on what's going on with the New York polls.
New York polls, Mamdani, and one of a Mamdani generated poll has him at 50%. Even the three other candidates combined can't beat him. So
that might be a push poll, so we don't know for sure. But
it is, but it's still something like that, and we're worried. So it's going to be a crazy thing. Adams down to 7% in that poll.
Yeah.
Mamdani at 50. Not good.
Let's hope Curtis could come from behind and shock us all. But let's
He's
talk
at
about
13
that.
in that poll.
Yeah, let's talk about that on the flip side. See you in a couple of minutes, folks.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Are you a musician, comedian, actor, filmmaker, or artist who stands for traditional American values? Do you believe in the preservation of our nation, our culture, and our freedoms? If you share our passion for America and want to use your talents to make a difference, we want to hear from you. Our mission is clear. Through the arts, we uphold the principles of freedom, faith, family, and the American spirit. It's time to step up to the mic and make your voices heard. So contact us at AmericanConservativeArtists.com.
Good morning. It's me, Joe the Box, wearing my Border 911 hat signed by Tom Holman, Rodney Scott, and Sarah Carter. The country has had enough. The American Horror Story is over. Border 911. Tom Holman is coming through. My brother's son, my friends' children. We're done with it. 100,000 were lost lives every single year. God bless you, Tom.
The Queens Village Republican Club is America's oldest Republican club, founded in 1875. Situated in President Trump's hometown in Queens, New York, we are America First MAGA Republicans, empowering fellow Republicans to get involved in the game of politics at the grassroots level. We host inspiring monthly club meetings on the first Thursday of each month at 8 p.m. For more information, please go to our website at www.qvgop.org.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
right, we're back on the Right Side podcast. I'm your host, Steve Levy, former Suffolk County executive here in Long Island and New York State Assembly member. I'm a writer for Newsmax Insider, and Washington Examiner has a lot of my articles, as does the Washington Times. I'm with David Zare, who's a man of all seasons, and most notably a huge correspondent for Real America Voice. He's hitting the trail, including Air Force One, constantly with his finger on the pulse. And speaking of your finger on the pulse, David, you're out there in New York City quite a bit, and I know this is like a national forum we have here on the Right podcast, but so much of what we're talking about here in New York with this mayor race is something that people have to pay attention to nationwide, because, as I mentioned in a previous segment, over in Minneapolis, you now have a socialist who is leading the pack. And this is incredible, because remember, this is Minneapolis, where George Floyd was murdered. And remember, you had that boy mayor, Jacob Fry, this guy who was deer in the headlights after all those riots, who actually stood on a soapbox and said, okay, let the precinct get burned down. He was such a wimp. Remarkably, this guy got reelected after all that. But as woke as he is, David, he's probably going to lose to this radical Marxist named Omar Fattah, who makes Mamdani over in New York City look conservative. What the hell is going on here with our youth and this new generation and the immigration patterns that we have in America now that are making these crazy people viable?
So this is a national trend. The Democratic Socialists are very powerful. Mamdani is only 32 years old. This guy, Omar Fattah, is only, he's only 35, I believe. And this is the movement that's going to sweep America because, again, listen, we can all say, oh, he's a radical Islamist. I lost my best friend due to radical jihad, right? So in 9/11. So I'm fervently opposed to, anything like that. But I'm not opposed to somebody just because they're Muslim, right? And
agreed.
The issue is that these guys are marketing geniuses, like Obama filling OSU Stadium with 90,000 kids, the social media platforms. Mamdani has 6 million followers just on like Insta and TikTok. Curtis Sliwa only has 100,000. So these guys
and he's
are
trying. He's trying at least. Curtis is at least trying. Cuomo is like a dinosaur, but Mamdani and these radicals, they know what to do. AOC is the champ of that.
They're very smart, and they're playing on the fact that even though the Democrat policies in general have caused these issues, these kids today can't reason, and they don't have the deductive skills to realize, the tenets of capitalism. They can't buy a home. They're coming out of college with $100,000 in student loan debt, and they can't get a job making more than $40,000, $50,000 a year because there's no jobs out there. So, this is what they're banking on. And I predict you're going to see the Young Turks style Democratic Socialists sweeping seats in Congress next year. And I think you're going to see that throughout the cities across America.
And even if they're not winning, David, on the ballot box, they're winning in policy because the so-called moderates, and I don't know how many there are out there, they're scared to death of losing a primary to these Young Turks. So they're basically just throwing in the towel and saying, whatever you want. That's what happened with the Biden administration. Biden won the election, but Bernie Sanders won the policy debate, and Biden became Sanders. And that's what you're seeing now with all these so-called moderates who won't push back against these Young Turks. They're scared of being taken out in the primary.
Right, and you're right, because even Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is not endorsing a candidate right now in that race. The Democrats don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And listen, what's behind a lot of these candidates is rampant anti-Semitism, global intifada, and, maybe support for anti-U.S. policies. So, that is an underlying potential threat as well.
Isn't it great that we have President Trump, though, who's really gone to war with these universities? And listen, sometimes he goes overboard because you really can't dictate to them what their courses are going to be so much. But you can get on them, their administration in particular, when they look the other way. While Jewish students are being locked out of the library, are being spit on, being harassed, when Marxist thugs, ideological thugs, Muslim extremists, and not just Muslim extremists, but white upper middle class kids take over the campus, and they're not punished. So Trump has come forward and said, look, if this was black kids who were shut out of the library or spit on or assaulted, or Muslim kids or gay kids, the Biden administration would be all over those administrators. And why aren't you administrators protecting the Jewish kids like you would the others? He's got a great point. Thank God he's been tough on them. And it looks like they caved.
Yeah, listen, I say we create an overlay district for all of these blue cities. They can all become their own country and secede from the United States, because they don't represent the values of the guy who gets up every day and works every day really hard. Alvin Bragg, the liberal Soros Colors of Change funded DA in New York City, just brought another bodega owner up on murder charges for defending himself and defending his own life, like they did to the grocery clerk, Jose Alba. I asked Trump at that Harlem bodega visit on day two of his hush money trial, I asked Trump what he's going to do to fix crime in the inner cities, and he's definitely paying attention to what's going on. But listen, this is what the young people want. They don't want to be prosecuted for anything. They had shitty parents, and now they want everything for free. And that's what's going on, and it's a wave sweeping America. I'm sorry to say it. I don't know if there's enough of us to push back, Steve.
I'm worried myself, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that civics and history isn't taught anymore. These kids are getting their information and their news and their history from TikTok. So it's distorted information. You have the 1619 Project that's now being taught in 4,000 schools around America, where kids are being taught that America was founded to promote slavery and racism rather than to get religious freedom. And speaking of Alvin Bragg, this guy's going to win re-election, David. He's going to win. This guy who said defund the police and, prosecute Penny, the guy who saved all those people in the subway, prosecute him, but let all the violent thugs off. This guy is going to win. So you have to say, is there a suicide wish for these blue city voters that they keep on reelecting the same crazy-ass people who've caused crime to go through the roof, who've made...
They do it to themselves. In New York City, only 11% of the vote is Republican that comes out and actually votes on Election Day. And Maud Marin probably is not going to beat Alvin Bragg for the DA's race. And by the way, rapes are up 65% this week in New York City. They're up 21.7% for the year. And 42,000 New Yorkers have been victims of felony or misdemeanor assaults year to date in the 5 boroughs of New York City.
And this is something that we're seeing around the country. Look at Cincinnati last week, and we all saw that disgusting video. And it goes back to, why didn't regular citizens, like in the old days, some hero like a Penny, is it David Penny, I think his first name is?
Daniel
Penny, right, would go to the rescue of these people who are getting pounded on the floor, and then they're thinking, my God, if I do that, is my life ruined? Is the crazy prosecutor going to come after me? The cops are saying, is my house going to be taken because I don't have qualified immunity anymore? Because since George Floyd, cops have lost their qualified immunity, where now they can not only lose their jobs and be brought up on criminal charges, but they could be sued and lose their homes because they made a split-second decision that a crazy jury doesn't agree with.
Yeah, so I have Corey Bowman on my show often, who's JD Vance's half brother. He's running for mayor of Cincinnati, but they got a pathetic mayor there now who's in by 85%.
A big
of the vote.
wokester.
85% he gets elected by, or something like that. And they got this useless police commissioner. Now, these two perpetrators who were arrested for that brawl in Cincinnati, almost killing a man, knocking out the white woman, nobody came to their aid. They're released on like $400 bond. Something like that. Maybe it's 4,000, but it's not a lot of money, and just pathetic.
Yeah, it really is frightening. Dave, we got a minute to go. Where are you going to be? What's going on? What should people look for with your show?
Oh my God! So Saturday morning, Breaking Point on Real America's Voice News. I got man on the street interviews from people who have family and friends or witnessed the events outside the mass shooting in Midtown Manhattan, iconic Park Avenue, Midtown Manhattan. People are vulnerable. They don't feel safe. Heinous crimes going on all over New York City. Random crimes. So stay tuned for Breaking Point, 8 a.m. Eastern, and follow me at Dave Zier on X.
Great. Thanks, David. And folks, if you want to follow me, it's stevelevy.info. Also go to the Center for Cost-Effective Government.org, and there you'll find our latest think tank white paper on how Medicaid is blown out of control and what has to be done to rein it in. And I talked earlier about those 20 examples of Hillary and Obama and the FBI framing and engaging in a coup against Trump. Go to our Long Island Life and Politics newspaper. That's longislandlifepolitics.com, and check it out. It'll blow your mind. Thanks, folks. David, thank you. We'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.
Thanks.